Welcome to Math with Mr. P. Today we're going to be doing Chapter 2, Lesson 3. This is 6th grade math, and we are dealing with percents and decimals. Now, we've kind of already talked about this in class, but let's go ahead and review. All percentages are out of 100. So if you have 4%, it would be the same thing as saying 4 out of 100 or 4 over 100, and we know that the 100 in decimal spot means that we are in the hundredths place, which is the second digit after the decimal. So 4 hundredths would be 0.04. This is what we are going to be dealing with most of all today, is going to be dealing with decimals turned into percentages or vice versa. Remember, all percentages as a decimal will end up having 2 digits after the decimal, unless of course it ends in a 0, which of course the 0 can be chopped off. This would be the same thing as saying 50%, because this is 50 100ths. Now let's do a quick review about what happens if our decimal has more than 3 numbers after the decimal. So say it's 0.123. We still look at the hundredth spot, but then we look at the number to the right of it, and this will tell us to round up or to round down. If the number is 0, of course we just chop it off and we're fine. Or if the number is 1 through 4, we are going to round down. If it's 0, we chop it off, and if it's numbers 1 through 4, we're going to round down. So in this case, this would just chop down to become 0.12 or 0.12, 12 100ths, which would be 12%. Now, let's give ourselves a different scenario. Let's say this was 0.126. If the numbers are 5 through 9, we round up. Let me get rid of these arrows that are going to be confusing. So because the 2 is in the hundredth spot, we are only looking to keep this section, which means we need to look at this number here. This 6 will tell us to round up. This will now become 0.13 or 13%. The said can be said if there's a bunch of digits. So let's just pick a random one, 0.157329. Again, I'm only focusing on the hundredth spot, and then I am also looking at the thousandth spot, because the thousandth spot is going to tell me if I round up or down. Now, this as is 0.15, which means it's 15%, but this 7 will tell me if I round up or down. Again, if it's 0 through 4, we round down. If it's 5 through 9, we round up. If we're not familiar with rounding, this definitely should be in your notes. This 7 tells me I need to round this 5 up to 6, which will become 0.16, 16 hundredths, or 16%. This is what this chapter is going to be mainly focusing on today. Now, let's go ahead and look at what the chapter wants us to look at. Write a fraction with a denominator of 100 to represent the percent for each subject. So again, percentages are out of 100, so our denominators are always going to be 100. For math, it is 28%, as indicated right here. So that will be 28 over 100. And we can simplify that later. Science will be 21 out of 100. Art will be 16 out of 100. Social studies, 15 out of 100. English will be 13 over 100. And then the other will be 7 over 100. So all of these represent percentages on the survey of how these students at Martin Middle School choose their favorite subjects. What are their favorite subjects? Here are our percentages in fraction form. Write each fraction form from exercise 1 as a decimal. Now, I will say this. The easiest way to write a percentage as a decimal is to not simplify it at all. Keep it to where the denominator is 100 because you're going to know exactly what number is going to be in your decimal. With math, it would be 0.28 or 28 hundredths, the last digit falling in the hundredth spot. Science would be 0.21. Social studies would be 0.15. Art would be 0.16. English would be 0. That'll let me write 13. And then with the other, since it's 7%, remember the last number needs to fall in the hundredth spot. So it's 0.07. That's 7 hundredths. If I were to write 0.7, that would technically be 70 hundredths, which would be 70%. So make sure that when you have a single digit above the 100, you put the 0 in front of it to make sure that that last number falls in the hundredth spot. So 7% would be 0.07. Look back at exercise 2, compare the decimals to the percents, explain how to write a percent as a decimal. So again, like we reviewed at the beginning, a percent as a decimal, so I'm going to put 0.0 as our decimal representation, is basically just when you have a percentage. So say we have 55%. As a fraction, we would put 55 over 100. We learned that last lesson. As a decimal, we would keep the number and make sure the last digit falls in the hundredth spot. Again, the hundredth spot in a digit is the second number after the decimal. The second number after the decimal. This is the 10th spot. This is the 100th spot. So 55% as a decimal would be 0.55. And that would be it. Now, we do not put the percentage symbol at the end of a decimal because that would make the 0.55%, which is completely different than 55%. They are asking us to convert the percentage to a decimal. Now, same thing as we learned last chapter when we put 55 over 100, the percentage symbol did not come with it. It just became a fraction. So that's basically it. You are just going to be putting the percentage as a decimal, making sure the last number aligns with the hundredths spot in the decimal. As we see here, to write the percent as a decimal, divide by 100 and remove the percent sign. This is the same thing as moving the decimal point 2 places to the left. If this is how your brain works, you can do this as well. Make sure the decimal, pretend like the decimal's at the end, jump it twice to the left, it becomes 0.48. which is what 48% would be. Now, they're asking us to divide by 100. Again, like I taught you guys last lesson, all decimal problems, the decimal symbol is basically a fraction. The dots represent numbers that haven't been chosen yet. So 56% as a fraction is 56 over 100. This is the same representation. Now, if I were to divide 56 by 100, I'm going to get 0.56. This is what this means. This is what this fraction represents. So as a decimal, it would be 0.56. You just don't have to show me when you're doing this all of those multiple steps, because I know what you're doing. You're just going to take the number and put it in a decimal form with the last number being in the hundredth spot. So all of these exercises show us the exact same thing. We are going to do the got it's together. 32%. Exact same thing as saying 32 over 100. Same thing as saying 0.32. That's what this would be as a decimal, 0.32. Not 100% sure why the eraser's not working right now. There we go. 6%. Same thing as saying 6 over 100. And we talked about this. When you have a single digit, make sure that it's not 0.6, it's 0.06 because the last number in your percentage needs to be in the hundredth spot. So this would be 0.06. And then C, 93%, same thing as 93 over 100, which would just become 0.93. So as we can tell, this one is going to be pretty straightforward, a pretty simple approach. Same thing as writing decimals as percent. We just change it from having the dot there, jumping twice to the right and making it percentage. So 0.38 as a percent, 38 hundredths would be 38%. 0.2 as a percent. Remember, it's got to jump twice. So that would be 2/10. But remember, if we had a 0 at the end of it, we need it out of 100 because all decimals or all percentages are out of 100. This would be 20%. So don't get fooled by the single digit ones. You still need to jump that decimal 1, 2 to the right, make it 20%. So these are going to be pretty simple again. 47 hundredths, 0.47, jump that decimal to the twice to the right, 47%. 73, same thing, twice, 73. And don't forget to add the percentage because we're turning these decimals into percentages. And then 0.05, again, this is 5/10. We want it out of 100, so we're going to add a 0 to the end of our decimal. Annex a 0, 1, 2 jumps. This would be 50%. And that's basically it. Again, right here in this example, they're talking about annexing a 0 so that you can jump over. Again, we've talked about this, all percentages need to be out of 100. Your decimals are going to be the same thing. They didn't talk about rounding in this lesson, but I front-loaded that for you because you're going to need to be familiar with that. Again, if a decimal has more than one digit, instead of being in the hundredths place, it's in the thousandths place. This number will tell you whether to round up or down. In this case, again, the 3 will tell us to round down, so we just chop off. This will be 0.17, aka 17%. 17 hundredths, 17%, because percentages are always out of 100. So I know this was a pretty quick lesson, but again, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Just make sure you've taken notes. Be prepared because this one's probably going to be a one-day one. We're not going to have an extra video this week just because this one is straightforward, but this will give you guys some extra time in class to get other work done that we need to get done or even review on Wednesday. So if there's any questions at all, again, you guys can email me. You guys can leave comments in the comment section. As always, this has been Mr. P, and I will catch you on the next one.